like this, you've gotta think, and I don't think you think about the way he thinks. And I know you live life for yourself, but it all comes down to the way you help. And I know your life is such a hell. You wake up early and you work until you have your drinks at 5 o'clock. The hours blend, your thoughts all haunt your hopes, your dreams, your everything.
Canada, the ninth wealthiest country and one of the largest as well, boasting a variety of resources from sea to sea, even hosting the 2010 Winter Olympic Games in BC, makes many Canadians proud to say they live in this wonderful country. Unbeknownst to them, however, as of 2005, 10.8% of people live under the low-income cutoff, which yields an astronomical number of 3.4 million people living in poverty in this very sector. But here's the question: how do we define poverty? Who is poor in Canada? And most importantly, what do we mean by removing poverty? Well, to find some answers to these questions, we need to know what poverty in Canada means. Poverty and homelessness are interchangeable. Poverty can strike at any moment and at any place, but poverty is mostly seen in the urban places of the country. Poverty in Canada is measured by the Low-Income Cutoff, or the LICO, which states that anyone receiving an income of $14,500 or less lives in poverty. But here is the thing: poverty is more than just low income. It is also the lack of access to sustainable livelihood. Many individuals living in poverty are forced between basic necessities, such as food, shelter, clothing, heat, and other utilities. They also can't or are unable to access health, pharmacare, dental care, education, and safe, rewarding work. Let's back up a little though. How do people even get in this vicious cycle? And which groups are affected by this horrible trend anyway? Single-parent mothers, Aboriginal, the mentally ill, the physically handicapped, recent immigrants, and students are considered to be the people who are most likely to live under the low-income cutoff. This is due to the fact that many of these people can't afford housing, the lack of education and training, which lowers their possible wages. Not only that, but racism and sexism is a major contributor to poverty. One of the major reasons that the Aboriginal people in Canada live under such conditions has to do with the fact of the Canadian government, as well as historical events, such as land disputes and residential schools. The First Nations living conditions rank 63rd among the Third World living conditions. In urban areas, 55.6% of Aboriginal people live in poverty, and although only 1.5% of Aboriginal people live in cities, out of them, 3.4% are poor. Not only that, but in Regina, 24% of Aboriginal people. If you think that poverty doesn't affect you, think again. Poverty causes people to have poor health, abuse of substances, live on the streets, commit crime, and eventually would lead to suicide. This impacts the taxpayers of the country. In 2006, 753,458 Canadians needed to use a food bank. However, one-third of food banks had difficulty meeting the demand, which increases the hardships of the poor, costing the government and taxpayers even more money. In Ontario, half as many people are on the waiting list for a home than there are non-profit housing units. Why do you think we have so many homeless people on the streets? Let's look a little bit deeper. Have you ever thought of how a person living in poverty feels? Individuals in these circumstances become withdrawn and depressed, anxious, isolated, causing them to have more health problems. More taxpayers' money is being used to support them. Poverty even prevents parents from spending time with their children. More children will experiment with drugs, alcohol, and which could lead to crime, and the cycle repeats all over again. In a nutshell, poverty doesn't just affect the person living in it. It affects the healthcare system. It even increases judicial costs. Where do you think your money is going? Social programs cost the government $145 billion in 2006. These social programs include welfare, old age security, employment insurance, subsidized housing, employment equity programs, and Canada Child Tax benefits. Introduced in 2007, employment equity programs encourage low-income people to keep on working, earning $500 if their earnings are between $3,000 and $9,500. But not only that, many private charities have homeless shelters and food banks that help those in need, such as the Canadian Red Cross, Salvation Army, and the United Way of Canada. But with so much help, why hasn't poverty been abolished? Poverty is a complex issue that can be solved by the federal government. This problem needs the support of the finance to human resources, to social development, to health and Indian and Northern affairs. What Canada needs is a national plan. The Canadian government needs to talk to the people who are affected by poverty. They need to know what their needs are. If they don't know what they need, how can they solve this problem? This national plan can't be anti-poverty. It needs to be pro-equality. If you can't fight the problem, you find ways around it to make the issue less prominent in Canadian society. This national pro-equality plan needs to focus on affordable housing, income security, support for the workers, and most importantly, sustainability. Reconciliation and healing must be enforced in regards to the Aboriginal people, and after that, equality can actually begin. A long-term strategic plan is needed with funding on affordable housing, increase the working income tax benefits, and raise the cut-off for access for someone working full-time can actually qualify for such benefits. Not only that, but ways in which immigrants can get their certification valued, such as retraining for a low amount of money. But most importantly, national child care and early learning plans must be implemented to have a brighter future. Poverty stops when the nation is educated. After that, equality can begin.
Anymore, I used to look up to the